Hello everyone, and welcome to today's workshop on the benefits of reading aloud. We have the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Rana Dajani, the founder of We Love Reading, about her journey and the impact of reading aloud in communities worldwide. Dr. Dajani's accomplishments are very remarkable. In addition to her work with We Love Reading, she's a professor of biology and biotechnology at Hashemite University in Jordan. And through her leadership, We Love Reading has trained a generation of individuals to read aloud to children. Their efforts have reached, and maybe these numbers are higher now, but over 4,400 libraries in 60 countries, touching the lives of countless children and families. She's received numerous accolades and fellowships from institutions like Eisenhower, Schwab, Ashoka, UNESCO, UNHCR, Jacobs, and Wise. Her work has garnered international acclaim for its evidence-based approach and the profound impact it has on communities. So we all know that reading aloud to children is important, but it's easy to overlook that it has additional effects on children's development and well-being. And so today we have the privilege of learning from Dr. Dajani about her experiences, her insights into the power of reading, and how it can catalyze long-term cultural change and skill development. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me to share and learn, all of us together. And I hope, if you have questions or anything later on to reach out and ask, I'm always available.
Great. And also We Love Reading, like Phyllis. Phyllis is member of the Grandmother Collective. So Phyllis is also part of our collective. All right. So Rana, I don't know if you needed the screen. I just enabled screen sharing. So
Yes,
I'll hand that over to you. I gave you an outline, but I feel like I'm just going to let you do your thing because you're a teacher and you know what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I called my talk My Grandmother's Wisdom because I think this Grandmother Collective is such an amazing project and an amazing initiative. And it's so important because we have so many wonderful people in our community that have great potential to help the next generation. So I'm very proud to be here. I'm proud to be part of this, and I'm proud to be a grandmother myself. So welcome everyone. I always like to start by saying that humans have evolved throughout history and through millennia telling stories. So I believe that in the past there were groups of people who sat around fires and told stories, and there was a group of people who looked at those who were telling stories and frowned upon them and accused them of wasting their time. But you can imagine which group actually survived. It was the storytellers. So in the spirit of evolution and storytelling, I'm going to share with you the story of We Love Reading. But before I begin, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit as more than what was introduced, which was fantastic, is that this neighborhood here in this picture is my neighborhood. So my name is Rana, my first name, but my last name is Dajani. And the Dajani family has been living in Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, since the 11th century. So many, many centuries. And this is a picture of our neighborhood. We have a cemetery, we have homes, we have a mosque, and so on. And this is a picture taken in 1942 of an extension of the Dajani family. So it's huge. And we were the caretakers of David's tomb. We took care of it because we wanted to, the mandate in Jerusalem and Palestine as a whole was that we had Muslims and Jews and Christians living together, all in harmony. And we survived and we thrived and we flourished. We created a great, wonderful civilization. And I mentioned this because that's where I'm from, right? I'm from West Jerusalem, but I live in Jordan. And because in 1948, my father, who was 5, he was expelled by Zionist forces outside. And unfortunately, it's happening again in Gaza as we see today. And I have to mention this because I have extended family still living there. Some left, some were able to stay, and some were dissipated all over Palestine. So I like to remember them and have a moment of silence of remembering them, because we are their voice. We are here to remember them and make sure that this does not happen again. Make sure that through our initiatives, we bring up a next generation who considers every human being equal to any human being. And when we say never, never for anyone, and equality for everyone. So with that, I start by introducing myself. I wear multiple hats, which represent my roles, but I don't wear a hat, I wear a scarf. So I talk about my multiple scarves. The first one is that I'm a mother. I have 4 kids and now I'm a grandmother. So I have 1 grandchild. And to me, that's the most important role any one of us can play in this world. And we don't talk about it. We don't introduce ourselves as that. Although, what more can we give humanity but to bring up a healthy child to become an adult who's responsible socially, emotionally, and physically. The second one is I'm a teacher. I was a school teacher for 10 years, and now I'm an educator at the university. And I think that's the second most important role any human being can play, because if the children are not at home, they're at school with the teacher who helps shape and mold who they are, their personalities, and how they look at life. The third scarf or hat is I'm a scientist. I'm a molecular biologist, and I study epigenetics of trauma and genetics of ethnic populations. And that's a whole talk on its own, which we can have later. But my fourth one, which is the reason I'm here, is I'm a social innovator. And I started We Love Reading back in 2006, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But I have a fifth scarf, which I don't tell anyone, and I invite them to read my book. So I will send my book as a PDF, as a gift for everybody, and they can ask from Lindsay later on to share it. And then you can guess what the fifth scarf is, and we can have a conversation about that. So the first word I'm a Muslim, obviously. The first word in our book, the Quran, is the word read, which is here written in Arabic, as you can see on the screen. And read doesn't mean just read, know the letters and how to connect them together to create a word, but read meaning to change your mind, to expand your horizon, to change you as a human being, to become a better person than yourself. So reading is very, very important and very ancient and part of what makes us human. So I was very curious why reading is, not everybody falls in love with reading. And the reason I was asking that question is I grew up reading a lot. However, when you go from one place to another, whether you're changing house or you're changing states or countries, and you go back to your original place, you notice things that changed. And you notice things that didn't change. And some things you appreciate and some things you don't appreciate. And you think, that could be better. So one thing I noticed when I was traveling and then got back to Jordan was children don't read for fun. Although reading for fun is so important because it doesn't just expand your imagination, but it actually gives you vocabulary to express yourself. So why is that important? Because when you're angry, instead of using your hands, you use your words. It gives you vocabulary which can then convey the richness of your thought, the richness of your emotion, because you have words to use and express what's going on in your mind. You learn about other people, so you become more empathetic. You learn critical thinking skills because you learn about diversity. You also learn to be the hero you read about. So you may have a great idea, but everybody tells you, oh, who do you think you are? But then you read a story about a hero and you think, oh, I can be like that person. So it inspires you and gives you confidence and courage to be a change maker in your own right. And we could go on and on about the beauty and importance of reading aloud. But that made me realize, okay, so my question then became, again, I'm a scientist and I wanted to ask, why don't children read for fun? And I realized the reason is because they don't love to read. Reading is always connected to education, to school, to chores, not to fun. And when somebody tells me, what do you mean, Rana, by fun? What I mean is under the covers, you can't wait, to get to your book, what to see what happened in the story, and so on. So then I asked the question, so how do I help children fall in love with reading? And that's when I realized it's about having a role model, about having a mom or a dad or a caretaker reading aloud to the children as early as when the mother's pregnant. Because when the brain is developing and the neurons are making connections, if you're reading aloud, there becomes an association between the feeling of security, happiness, and being taken care of with reading that stays with you as an adult. So when you're happy, you want to read. When you're sad, you want to read. You don't know why, but it gives you that good feeling that goes back to that early stage of your life when somebody dear to you was reading aloud to you. And so I found the solution. Every parent should read aloud to their children. So great. Okay, Rana. So what does that mean? Do I tell the government to pass a law? Every parent should read aloud. I mean, even if they did, that doesn't guarantee parents are going to read aloud. Do I knock on every door and say, you have to read to your children? I mean, first, it's not practical. And second, I can't guarantee that the parents are going to listen to me. So what did I do? I felt this huge responsibility. And again, being a Muslim, we have a saying, every one of you is a protector and a guardian. So I need to do something with my knowledge. I need to share it. And like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So I thought, okay, Rana, it's not enough you read to your kids. I mean, that's great, but there are other kids around you and you could do more. And so I thought, I'm going to take responsibility, be the change I want to see in the world, and read to the children in my neighborhood. So I told my husband and my kids, and and that's how We Love Reading actually started, right? And that's why we called it We Love Reading. And our motto, our vision, mission is changing mindsets through reading to nurture change makers. So what does that mean? So I gather the children and read aloud to them. And I started in my neighborhood. I wanted a place where all the children could come to. And to me, in my neighborhood, the mosque was right beside my house. And I thought, why don't I use it? It's got a carpet, it's got a bathroom, every child can come to it, and it's present in every neighborhood. And so we talked to the guy, we called him Imam, like the priest in charge of the mosque. And we said, hey, can we read aloud? And in the mosque, like on Saturday morning, because it's empty. And he said, oh, yeah, of course, because he knows me. Like I'm the neighbor. If I was somebody from outside the neighborhood, he would say, oh, what's her agenda? Or what does she want? But I'm the neighbor. So of course, come on in. And this is really exciting. And he announced it. It's like, Sunday church, Friday, the Friday prayers. And then all the parents heard and they heard, oh, reading in the mosque. Oh, this is good for education and religion. Of course, it had nothing to do with education and religion. You can see me there in the back of the picture. I have a funny hat. Remember, I was a teacher in another life, in a very really fancy, sparkly dress. And I got stories that are in the native language, very important because it has to be associated with that care, and stories from the child's everyday life. So children in the stories that look like them, and act like them, but more importantly, these are real children. So it's about a story of a child who picks his nose, or a child who wants to run away, or a child who hates being kissed by his auntie. These are things that children do. Adults love those kinds of stories. So we made sure that those were the kinds of stories, and not stories about the perfect child. Who wants to hear a story about a perfect child to remind themselves of how not perfect they are? So we chose our books very carefully. And then I would read one or two stories. And the kids, of course, when they came and they attended the reading aloud, they fell in love with reading because it was about fun and enjoying yourself. Then they would line up and take the books home. And here you can see them at home. They would start reading to themselves, or they would beg their parents to read to them. See, that's the difference. If you tell the parent to read to the child, first, we don't know if the parents are going to listen. Second, the child is not going to always respond to the parent because it becomes another chore, another things they have to obey. But when we did it the other way around. We flipped the cart. And it was the child now falling in love with reading, demanding their parents to read to them, or they saying, I'm going to read to my friends, my siblings. And so they fell in love with reading. They would come every week and demanding to be read more books. They wanted to go to school because they realized that if they go to school, they could learn to read better, and then they would unlock more fun from reading. And so We Love Reading was very, very successful in that sense. And the children and the parents and everybody was happy. And then actually the parents were excited. And they started contributing by buying more books, encouraging their children to read more, and so on. So it was a perfect example of how little things can make a huge difference. So what happened is that we took what I did in my neighborhood and we turned it into a training program. So we have which I will share the link of the training. We can put it under the video later. And now the training trains, as you can see here, it takes a journey of the trainee, the person, whether it's women or men or youth. It's like from age 16 to 100, so long as they can be responsible to read to children. And they don't have to be highly educated. They don't even have to know how to read, because these are picture books. So you can make up a story, and the child has to figure out what is the story, which is even better for their brain, because then they make more neurons work. And because they're reading in their native language, it's easy, right? It's not another language or another thing that they have to learn. And a children's book is pretty simple, a few sentences and a lot of pictures. So in the training, we train these people how to, first of all, why reading for fun is important, how and why and how you do help a child fall in love with reading through reading aloud, and then how to read aloud as an art, because a lot of people have never been read to, so they don't know how to do it. So we train them how to read aloud as an art, the do's and don'ts of it. And then we tell them, now that you know why reading for fun is important and how to help a child fall in love with reading and how to read aloud, now you want to start a reading aloud session in your neighborhood. So how do you do that? So we go through the steps that you have to find a space, and we always give examples, many examples from the We Love Reading ambassadors, which we call them, from around the world. So for my example, I read in the mosque. We have others who read in a church, others who read in a school, in a community center, under a tree, on the stairs of an apartment building, in your home. Everybody chooses what fits their neighborhood and their community, because they know best. So we only give examples. But in the end, this is the We Love Reading Ambassadors project. It's her thing. She decides what language, she decides where, she decides when. Like I read on Saturday morning, people could choose Thursday evening, Friday, whatever. I mean, it's up to them. They know when. And then how to gather people or children, right? Some people will send a WhatsApp or a social media post, or in the grocery store, a flyer. People do whatever. They know their neighborhood better, and they know how to recruit the children and how to talk to their community to make sure that they have the support of the community for what they do. Most importantly, they have to be reading in their neighborhood, so they're trusted, right? It's not somebody from outside. We don't know who they are. And because you're in your neighborhood, everybody knows if you're good or you're bad. So it has a built safety net by the way it is designed, right? And so that's the training. And once you're done, it takes like a couple of hours maximum if it's online. And in some cases, we have face-to-face training. But at the end, you get a certificate and you become a We Love Reading ambassador. And you're a We Love Reading ambassador for life. And you can choose whatever you want to do. You could just read to yourself. You want to read to your children. You want to read to your family. You want to go out and read to your neighborhood, or you want to even go more. You decide where and how and what is your pace, because we trust you. Actually, you're the expert. We will learn from you because you know everything in your neighborhood. We don't. And that's why we tell the We Love Reading ambassadors that we invite them to share with us how they started, what happened, what are the challenges they faced, how they figured it out. Because through that, we can help share their experiences with the wider We Love Reading community and new people who come in. So they become the experts for each other. And to enable that, we created a WhatsApp group where everybody, after you take the training, you join a WhatsApp group, whether it's in your region, your country, or globally, and then you can converse and talk in your own language about how you're doing things and what's going on and so on. And so in a way, that's why We Love Reading, as you can see here, is not just about the children. I mean, one thinks We Love Reading is a program about children. Yes, it helps children fall in love with reading. Yes, and the benefits of that are immense. But also because it's face-to-face, you're actually reading aloud to a child from a real book, right? So I have with me a book. I never go around without a book. I always have a book with me. So you have always a real book. You can smell it. I love books. And a child loves that, because when you're reading a real book, you're looking into their eyes. You're having that human interaction, which is so important for human development. We evolved as a social species. We need that social contact. So that's why the reading from a real book is very important. But then we use technology like for the WhatsApp or the online training to reach the adults so that we can get in touch, but not for the children. So that's why the program is not just about children falling in love with reading, but it's also a mental health program, because it gives this feeling of security and it reduces stress and anxiety in the child. Also, what we discovered later, after we won multiple awards, we were in UNESCO, and somebody from UNESCO told me, Rana, your program is not just for children. Your program is an adult program, because it helps adults discover their voices literally by reading, but figuratively by becoming leaders in their community. Because they think, and that's what we discovered, that these We Love Reading ambassadors, as they read aloud to children, and all the community thanking them and appreciating what they're doing, and they get all the credit. So We Love Reading, the organization, is never visible. All we did was just, give some tips, and that's all. You, the ambassador, did all the magic. She did everything. So she gets all the credit. And when you get all the credit, and nobody's forcing you to do anything or following up on you or asking you questions, when you have the freedom to quit, you never quit. So you keep going on and you think, oh my God, if I can do this, what else can I do? So you start solving other problems. So we've had ambassadors who, first of all, have been reading for years, right? And nobody pays them. And when you ask them, they tell you we're doing it for ourselves because we care. This is our community. We're not doing it for anyone else. And then we have so many stories and examples of either We Love Reading ambassadors solving other problems like littering in the street or graffiti or about the environment, saving our earth or climate change, or finding a better job or creating an NGO. So every ambassador takes her own path, as I said, and there's nobody judges and nobody forces anything. We just want to know what's happening so we can share your stories and learn more about you. And that's why We Love Reading is also about adults, about a program for adults becoming social innovators in their own right. And also we discovered it helps their mental health. Because when you feel that you are important, that you are relevant, that you have an impact on the community, this does magic to your feeling of confidence and self-worth, and empowerment, and even makes you happier. And we'll show you how we were able to prove that. And so We Love Reading has spread because of all those reasons, today to 69 countries around the world. Actually, that's the latest number, as you can see, in every continent almost. And that's why we scale wide. And of course, using the WhatsApp has allowed us to connect with all these people. And of course, COVID, although it was a negative thing, it was a silver lining because it helped us go online more to make sure we reach more people. But we're also scaling over time. So this is a picture of Layan, who I read to back in 2006, right? Now she's a university student, and she shares with us, we created a magazine about her story of how We Love Reading made a difference in her life as she grew up. And so we envisioned that we as an organization, We Love Reading, are pushing out the training, but eventually other people pick it up, whether it's other organizations or individuals. And then suddenly it's owned by the community. That's why we've been called a social movement. And we become smaller and smaller because there's no need for us. It's spreading like a good virus all over the world. And we scale deep, like I said. So it's not just the ambassador who's changing. It's her family, her wider community, and the children she reads to, and their children's families, and so on. So it becomes like a domino effect. And these are some of the numbers. Again, this needs updating. We're in 69 countries now. And there's over 8,000 plus trainees as well. So why did we succeed? And this is an example of a vulnerable community that We Love Reading had spread to. We Love Reading is in everywhere, in every socioeconomic status. So not just like vulnerable communities, even high socioeconomic status communities benefit from We Love Reading because nobody's reading aloud to their kids, believe me. And so, but you see it even more and the impact more in vulnerable communities. So in here we had, when you're a refugee or displaced, whether it's a natural disaster or a pandemic or a war, you feel you don't have hope. You don't know what's going to happen next. And so through We Love Reading, suddenly you have a purpose because you're going to gather the kids and help them. And if we're talking from a grandmother's perspective, going through any stress in life, this also gives her a hope and gives her a purpose and something to aspire to. That's easy. It's not complicated. It doesn't need money. It doesn't need a lot of planning. I mean, you're just gathering kids and reading aloud to them. And sometimes that's all you need. You need that push, that little spark. Because also we believe that this is not something we create. That's why we don't like the word create, or even I don't like the word empower, because empower implicit means I am giving you power. No. You have the power. I am giving you nothing. You are fantastic and great. All I do is like a nudge, right? That's all. And so that's why We Love Reading is successful, because it fosters that feeling of agency and I can, and that mindset and ownership and responsibility, instead of waiting for somebody to come and tell me what to do or waiting for somebody to save me. I remember Dr. Seuss's book, The Waiting Place. I don't know if anybody knows the book. All the Places I'll Go. I love it. It's one of my favorite books. And one of the pages, it says the waiting place. Don't ever stay in the waiting place. And that's what We Love Reading is about. It's about, no, you take agency, you go do what you can. And boy, kid, you can move mountains, right? Grandmas, you can move mountains. And so that's our secret sauce, by the way. That's what we call it. It's because people have their agency and they do whatever they want. And of course, we've worked now with government. So like in Jordan, where this whole started, we have a whole national campaign for reading. But we've, and I want to allude here, I don't, in the what's rest of the time, like how we have, through We Love Reading, done systems change, changing the world around us for the better, through the program and through the women and men who are part of We Love Reading, and the evidence we have compiled for that. So most importantly is the evidence, right? And it's good to see evidence, because when you see evidence, it gives you encouragement to keep on doing what you're doing. So first we wanted to look, again, because I'm a scientist, I have to use science to and study it from a scientific perspective. So we actually did something like we call them randomized control trials, which are really rigorous academic research, not just any research. And we were able to show that children who are part of We Love Reading, that they improve their children's literacy and attitudes towards reading. And this is not just like over a short period of time, but actually sustainable over a year at least, compared to children who are not part of We Love Reading. And all of this is published research that you can find on our website. We also showed, that's the publication. We also showed that their executive functions improved, meaning their working memory, their emotional regulation, their inhibitory control of the children. And these executive functions are very important for children when they go to school, because we already know through other research that if those functions are better, you do better at school. And if you do better at school, you'll do better in life on the long run. So again, this is also work we did with Brown University that's published. And we actually showed, I don't know if I have the slide here. Yes, here it is, that We Love Reading works not just for low socioeconomic, but also for high socioeconomic. So it benefits all. But for the low socioeconomic status, it helps bridge the poverty gap just by reading aloud, not money, reading aloud. You create a whole opportunity for that child. We also got, smart and wise, and we said, wait a minute, if we got these kids reading, what about changing their behavior by reading books that have a particular message? Of course, they have to be for fun to get the child to read in the first place. But then can we have like subtle messages? So, and because of climate change and the environment, we created a whole series of books about the environment, energy conservation, water conservation, and anti-littering. And we read them aloud to the children. And also we showed through a scientific rigorous research that we were able to change all their attitudes towards those environmental things just by reading aloud. So also much cheaper than billboards and TV ads and all that. You just read aloud to kids. And we also did a whole research on empathy and showed that reading aloud improves empathy in children, as you can see here, 100-fold. And then we even found that We Love Reading can improve emotional perceptions. So usually kids who have been in domestic abuse, like in their childhood as children, or in war or in displacement, and have trauma, we showed that, so usually if you give them a series of faces from sad to happy, they identify the happy faces as sad because they have this inclination because of their past experiences. And we showed through We Love Reading that they go back to normal after being read aloud to for 3 months. And that's also research we published as well. So, and then we even thought, okay, does We Love Reading impact your DNA? Again, I'm a genetics person. So we asked that question, and that's still coming. We're still working on that research to see, can reading aloud help reduce trauma biologically in your body and your physiology and your DNA. So then we were interested to study, what about the parent-child interaction through reading aloud, especially if you have fathers or mothers. So we started that, and we're working on that. So that will be forthcoming. And then we wanted to see the influence of We Love Reading on play, on the parent-child relationship. So this is research that's still forthcoming. But then, and this is for the grandmothers, we thought, what about the adults? Remember, we said that we found out the adults felt better about themselves. They had these wonderful stories, but we wanted to get the evidence again. So we actually conducted research on many of these stories. So for example, here we have a Nabila, who's also a grandmother. She had cancer, and to her, she was feeling depressed and, feeling down. And then she took the We Love Reading training, and it changed all her life because suddenly she had a purpose. She was reading to the kids. Now she's much better. She went back to school, and she's like the famous person in the neighborhood. She actually, her neighborhood was reported, this is in Jordan, in the capital Amman. So the municipality had reported that one of the neighborhoods is cleaner than any other neighborhood. And when they went to see what the issue was, they found out it was the kids were cleaning the neighborhood. And it was whose kids? The kids who attended Nabila's reading aloud. All through reading aloud stories. And she won a big award from the municipality, and she was the star of all of this. And we have other stories like Abdullah, who has a physical disability. And to him, We Love Reading changed his whole life because he found purpose, and he's important, he's relevant for the community, and he can do a lot to help the community. And we had a whole master's degree from London University doing her whole master's degree. It's on our website. You can read it about fathers' perception of themselves through reading aloud to the children. But then we were interested in the again, back to the woman. The majority of We Love Reading ambassadors are women, and they range from, as I said, in many age groups. And so we were able to show that their motivation to lead and their satisfaction all improved. And we had this like theory of change that when you read aloud, you feel important because the kids look up to you and the parents and the community looks up to you. And this makes you feel self-confidence and thinking, what else can I do in that feeling of responsibility? Now, we have a movie, a documentary that goes with our program. And this is being offered for free by the partner who created the program, the movie. And so this is something you could maybe do a screening, a film screening with in your next round of activities and show the movie, which is fantastic. And it talks the story of Asma, and as you can see her picture in the movie, who was a refugee, and how We Love Reading changed her whole life. And now she's this award-winning leader doing amazing, amazing things. And we have a children's book to go with it called My Mama's Magic as well. So we developed children's books, like I said, about different topics to make more books available. But the last impact, we said the children, the adults who are reading aloud, but also the whole community, feeling this sense of I can, taking responsibility and not waiting for somebody to do things. You remember Kennedy saying, it's not what the government can do to the people, it's what the people can do for your country, right? That famous saying. And so that's what we instill as well. What can we do for our community? So so some stories of the impact of We Love Reading in the community is when we went to a city in the south of Jordan to do a training, and this woman came up to me and said, why don't you build us a library? And I said, but why are you waiting for me from outside your town to come and build you a library if you really want it? So she took the training, she started reading aloud, she chose to read in a mosque, and the kids kept increasing in numbers. 5, 10, 20, 30, 75. There was no more space. So a local contractor who was part of the neighborhood, so his kids were actually attending, offered to build a room, which became the library that they invited us to visit a few months later. And that library still exists today because it was made by the people for themselves. And that's the lesson of the changing of the mindset of the community. So We Love Reading is innovative because it has the secret sauce I talked about of this mindset of I don't have to wait for anyone. That it's based on shared universal values, but yet it's unique and diverse. Everybody does it the way they want, in their own language, their own place, their own time, their own space. And then we don't use technology as a slave. We use it to serve us, right? So that's why we don't use it for the kids. We only use it for the adults. So for all those reasons, we won multiple awards. And today we are, again, I'm going to skip through this, sorry. And that's why our motto is the butterfly effect, which says when a butterfly flutters its wings, it moves the wind a centimeter. And as a result, you have change beyond time and place that you can imagine, a hurricane, through reading. So we invite you to be the butterflies of change, changing yourself, your family, your community, your neighborhood, and then the whole world together. We have a book about We Love Reading, which I can also share as a PDF, and it's actually on our website. You can download and read about it. And I like to remind every person as a biologist that your DNA is different from anyone else that ever lived, that lives today or will live in the future. So you're special, you're unique. And so the world needs your uniqueness to contribute to the world. And if somebody says you're just a drop in the ocean and you're not going to make a difference, tell them, but what is the ocean? But millions of drops that come together. So reading is this change-making thing. And I invite you to join hands, and together we can, be a social movement around the world, a good virus to change the world. So thank you. And here's the contact information. And then if anyone has questions, comments, and I'll share all the links and all the resources with you.
Thank you, Rana. That was
You're
so
welcome. You're
wonderful.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
How do I stop sharing? Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
oh,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got it.
So
Yeah.
any materials that you want to share, I'll post out to everyone who registered.
Okay.
But yeah, let's open it up for Phyllis already asked a question in the chat, so let's
Uh,
open that up. And I want to welcome those who have arrived later. My old colleague Vincent, who I'd like to see his face, uh, has arrived. It's fun to see his name. Okay, go ahead, Phyllis.
Rana, this is such an exciting story. I can tell why you were such a wonderful teacher. You're so enthusiastic. I've taught in many places, South Africa, France, England, Argentina, etc., Costa Rica. Um, the thing is the books, getting the books, and being able to read them, etc., and then passing on it to the children to take books home. Where do you get your books? Because I've found in many cultures there isn't I'll take Costa Rica as an example, there isn't a culture of reading in the home. So the books have to be introduced. So how did you get the books? And the second question is just the technical one. I noticed that many of the people were just sitting and were reading, but they weren't showing the pictures. So for little ones, sometimes you have to make sure that they can all see the pictures. So anyway, that's two questions. Sorry.
no, perfect. Thank you for the question. So, first of all, the reading itself, of course, reading aloud, there's a whole art to it, and that's what we do in the training. So they show the pictures and the whole thing. So that's in the training. And anyone can take the training now and see it, and we have the do's and don'ts. So yes, of course. So it depends what pictures we're showing. Maybe there was just snapshots, but there are a picture. And thank you for saying that. I'll make sure we have the picture where the woman is holding the story up for the kids. And I thought that was in the presentation, but no problem. The other question, the first one about the books. So in terms of the books, that's a challenge, but it's not the important one. It's secondary. The most important thing from our experience from communities where people don't read aloud, they don't realize that they need to read aloud to the kids. So before they say we need books, even if they had books, they wouldn't read aloud. And why? How did we learn that? So Jordan was a very good example for us to discover that for two reasons. One, children in Jordan don't read aloud, don't read for fun, because that's our objective, right? To get the kid to read for fun. Children don't read for fun. So the first thing that comes to mind after and all around the world is, oh, they don't know how to read. That's why. So it's literacy, right? And so there are a lot of programs that teach literacy. But Jordan, everybody reads, everybody's literate. So the reason they're not reading for fun is not lack of literacy, right? Because if I was in another country, I would think the problem was literacy and I'd focus all my energy on literacy.
Yeah.
But even after I get them to literacy, they're still not reading for fun. All right.
Yeah.
So that's why Jordan helped me unpack it. All right. So the second thing it says, okay, they know how to read. Now the problem, the second thing everybody says is they don't have enough books. All right. Again, back to Jordan. In Jordan, you go to any house, it's full of books. Okay. So then these children know how to read. So it's not about literacy and they have books. So the reason they don't fall in love with reading is not lack of books as a primary reason. And that's why we're able to unpack and say, it's about role models. Nobody is reading for fun. And this is so like when we come back, when look at it, it's such a no-brainer, right? Because kids, if your mom puts lipstick, the kid puts lipstick. If the mom wears high heels, all the kids wear high heels. If the dad is standing in a particular way, the kids imitate. That's what we do. So when parents are not reading aloud, reading even to themselves for fun, that's it. They read for other purposes, newspaper, politics, religion, school. Yeah, but reading for fun is different. It has its special thing. It means the person has a book in their bag every day. That means the person is putting that book out when they're waiting in the bus or the physician or so on. That does not happen. So that culture doesn't exist, right? And so we honed in on that. And that's why we focused on training how to read aloud so that we can reach the stage of children falling in love with reading. Now, Other programs are working on the literacy because, of course, that's step number one. You need to know how to read, but we're not doing that, and others are doing it. And so we did the second step, which is the reading aloud, and falling in love with reading. Now, once you get everybody in love with reading, then you will hit the problem of books, right? But to give books without having help them fall in love with reading is like putting the cart before the horse. Like I said, in Jordan, there's books, but nobody uses them. So you need to first make them fall in love with reading. Now, if the children have fallen in love with reading, then we can talk about that problem of books. So what we've done is, other than creating a lot of children's book in Arabic for the Arab world, which is almost 500 million, which is great. But what we did, because We Love Reading is for every language, right? But when we cannot figure out books for the whole world, what we've done two things. One, we've partnered with a lot of people who have books in local languages so that we make those resources available after the training or on our website. So that's one way. But the other way is for languages like there are indigenous languages that don't even have books in their language. So we included, we included in the training how to choose a good book, first of all, because when there's books available, how to choose the right book for reading aloud, etc. But we also included how to write your own book. So that if you have your indigenous language in like a ABCD, how to write your own book, even if it's a page, because this is a children's book, right? It's really mostly illustrations. That's what matters, because you need to trigger that falling in love. And then in the training, we show that you don't need a lot of books. A kid loves to read the same story again and again and again. We know that. So you don't need a lot. You need just 10, 20 books, and then that's it. You just keep using them and using them. And hopefully what happens, again, what we do is we spark. That's it. So if you read aloud, and we've shown in the research that 3 months of reading aloud once a week is enough for a child to fall in love with reading. Then the child will start exploring and finding the books, and demanding the books from their parents, from their teachers, finding them wherever they are in their neighborhood, digging them up, or even now at this stage, you may say they can find them online, like on a phone. But not before, because before it's a lost competition, because a phone is in the mind of the child in today's world is about games. So you can't start with a reading aloud on a phone. You have to read aloud in a real book situation. And in every case, and this is reports from the We Love Reading ambassadors telling us that it works. If you believe reading aloud is fun, and you actually fall in love with reading, because we say when you choose a book, you have to choose a book you love, because it's contagious. In our culture, as a mom or a grandma, when you love food, a particular kind of food, you want your grandchildren to taste it, right? You say, please, just have a bite. This chocolate cake is amazing, or this whatever French fries, like you gotta taste it. So imagine it's the same with books. Like you gotta read this thing. I want to read it to you. It made me cry or it made me laugh. So that's what we're trying to instill. And then we say we believe that a child, and we all know this, when a child wants something, they will get it. They will do anything in the world to get it. And so we bet on that.
Thank you.
Well, that was a long answer, but because there's so much to say.
And a lovely answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for you, Rana, and I'm sorry I was late getting in. I had another meeting, but thank you very much. How exciting this is. This is incredible. And I know we're talking about intergenerational, but what about reading to your own generation, like getting circles of people? And maybe you addressed that when I wasn't here, but I know there's a lot of lonely people who are disconnected, and I'm sure that it would be a wonderful thing to instill this love of reading, to just get a circle together, and you don't have to talk about anything. You're getting together for tea and cake and reading, and pick a good book that you can read, and then maybe help them to go out to then help intergenerationally and read aloud. But I don't know if you addressed reading to other adults and getting them excited about this. This is wonderful.
Yeah, no, thank you. So your question and comment is very important. So let me unpack it in two ways. One, if your objective is to, by making a group of adults reading together, if your objective is to get them to read to children, the attraction would be to talk about the children rather than talking about reading together. To me, I would think so, because reading together, I mean, you're implying they know how to read, you're implying that they want to sit and read a book, et cetera, et cetera. But by saying, oh, do you want to read to the younger children? That's more attractive, that's easier, that's simpler in a way. So we would go through the other route. However, your comment about why don't adults sit together and read aloud, that's fantastic, and I agree 100%. And but what the thing is, we don't do that. And then this I learned, you need to be focused and you need to create your own niche where you excel. So I could start a program about that, but then that's going to take more work and to me, and energy and focus, etc. And to me, no, I would rather target helping a child fall in love with reading to grow a whole generation of people who love to read, because it's always easier to work with it, to change the mindset of a child than that of an adult. And if they're not used to reading, you know, at a certain age, I mean, the longer you don't, the more difficult it is, because than when you're working with a child. So I was trying to see, what is it that I can do, minimum input, maximum output. That's for us as an organization. However, ambassadors, like I said, get inspired and do their own ideas, and they start their own projects. So that could be, and many of our ambassadors have started similar projects. So I'll give you an example. The movie I talked about that I hope you could screen in another session. This is an ambassador. She actually never finished school. She married early. She was a refugee. She took the training in 2014, started reading aloud to the children, found hope and purpose, and started writing children's book, read aloud some more, invited to become a teacher. And then she said, I want to create my own project. And she wanted to target teenage girls, right? Because we're very clear who we target. She said, these are young teenager girls. They're not getting proper education about themselves, about their well-being, about what do they want in life. So she created something like a book club for teenagers and got the books and gathered the girls. So the movie actually tells her story and documents her as she creates this new project in real time. So you're seeing how she's starting, how she's thinking, how she's organizing, and so on. So yes, and I'm sure there are other women who have started book clubs as a result of starting to read aloud to children and thinking, oh my God, I could do other things. So yes, and I just unpacked it in different ways in a more like practical way.
Well, thank you. No, that's wonderful. And as you speak, I get excited. I work with a program in the prison system, and I think it would be very interesting to get prisoners reading to each other. You know,
absolutely.
When they get out, they can read to their grandchildren, and you know, but oh, that's wonderful! Wow, I am so excited.
No, and your suggestion about the prisons, that has been brought up by other ambassadors as well, who people have thought about it. We actually were invited once to a juvenile prison in Jordan. We went into the teenager boys and also gave them how to read aloud, so they would think of reading to the younger kids in the juvenile system. And then we hope that when they go out, they would, like you said, read, or they would tell their parents to read to them, trying to spread that spirit. But again, between the adults, that would be amazing, because it gives them a sense of purpose and a good, that we can make a difference in an easy way. That's the beauty of We Love Reading. It's not like complicated. You have to create a job or a business plan, or, you know, or you need money. It's pretty simple.
No, thank you. Wow, this is wonderful.
Thank you.
Carrie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rana, for what you shared. Really incredible work that you are doing and have done. So thank you so much for being here today. I was really loving what you said about the books that were written about specific topics. And I wondered if, are those available? Like, do you have those published, and can you buy them? I'm finding, like, you know, even what you can order, and there's dwindling number of bookstores actually, where you can actually go and buy books, and then I think the selection is also dwindling. So if we find other sources of books and where to get them, then that would be great. And yeah, I also like what you said about writing your own books, because I remember kids, how much kids love to write and illustrate books, and then they love to kind of read them to each other. So there's always like a make your own book option.
Exactly. So our books, because we were all, again, I'm very lean in the sense, like, we do what we can. So we know that there's so many books in English compared to Arabic. So our books are all in Arabic. So we have 33 titles. They're all in Arabic. However, what we did is the last 3 books, we had enough funding. We developed them in English. So there, we have an Arabic version, English version, and these are not translations. They are rewritten in the mother tongue, like in English and then in Arabic. So we have 3. Actually, one of them is the one that goes with the movie, My Mama's Magic. And the other 2 are about science and women and climate change. So they kind of hit 3 topics at the same time. Now those books are available, but the thing is, they're printed. We publish them, so we have them. The thing is, you would have to send an email. We don't sell them online in Jordan. We can't do that. We can't sell online. So it would have to be, and that's what we're trying to figure out. But you could actually order them through an email, send an email to us, and then we would figure out, like we would ask you to pay the shipping as well and figure out how to do it. But it would have to be an email. So this is not still mass, although we sell them in Jordan mass, but outside Jordan, we still have to figure out a partner who can do the online kind of advertising and marketing and so on. Again, because books is not our main thing. Our main thing is the program, but that's like sugar added on the side.
Yeah, well, that's great. I will definitely email, and I hope that you can find a way, because I mean, potentially, you know, maybe that would be a source of funds too. I think people would buy them.
Yeah. I totally agree. And maybe this is something, again, I don't know if anyone, this is something, like I said, we're trying to figure out how to sell them, how to find somebody who can be a partner. So we don't want to be, I mean, we'd rather give this to a partner. We're team players. So if there's a partner who wants to sell them and give us whatever percentage, we don't care. It's not about making money, then wow, that would be great for us, because we want just to get more books out there.
Conceivably, they'd have to be printed elsewhere too, right? Not
Yeah,
everywhere.
absolutely. So they,
Printed and
they can't be printed in Jordan. They'd have to be printed and distributed. And we would give the copyright. We don't have no problem.
Wow. There you go, someone. Come up with that. Does anyone else have anything? We got 3 minutes left. Well, I know, you know, we're working here in Philadelphia, and we have a couple other partners in Chicago and Eastern Kentucky, which I shared with you, who are really thinking about the roles grandmothers can play in education and literacy and things like that. So I will be sharing this with those initiatives that we have, with the hope that we eventually maybe, you know, are building a brain trust or some kind of organization, you know, something that we house here at the Grandmother Collective at Grandmas in Schools. So this is a good launch for that. And wow, now I'm telling you, next week or the week after, I'm attending a film screening, literally to figure out how to do that online. like it's an online film screening that has like a Q&A after. So I'm going to attend one so that I can figure out how to do that for the Grandmother Collective, because there's quite a few films that actually people have shared with us. So hopefully we get something like that in our events. I think our community would really benefit from that. Also the
and I put the
conversation
link
that can come from it. Oh,
exactly.
there it is.
I put the
Great.
link. And the link, actually, it's a whole campaign. It has questions and what to do, and a whole even curricula, what to do afterwards. So it's a very well done movie with a campaign and everything you need to screen.
Great. Yeah. So I will follow up with everyone who registered, and then we'll also post it out on YouTube, and you know, you can share what you were inspired by today. Right? Inspiring, right? We should do more workshops.
Inspiring.
Very
Let's do more
inspiring.
workshops. Yes, Vincent, we'll share it with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Hello.
Vincent. He and I used to work together at Ashoka.
Oh, okay.
He
Nice to
runs
meet
the Ashoka East Africa office.
Oh, okay. So Ashoka Fellow. I'm an Ashoka Fellow. So welcome.
Did you know
Yeah,
that,
you're an
Vincent?
Ashoka.
Did you know she was
Yes.
an Ashoka Fellow? Yeah, he knew.
Yeah. I already said. But I'm Ashoka staff. Nice. This was quite inspiring. I'll catch up the 30 minutes that I missed.
Yeah. But you can imagine this playing in Kenya very well, right? There's so many books and so much literacy. And everyone's very literate. Everyone reads. I mean, everyone can read. And yet you have I don't remember watching people read in public very often or have that sort of
No, actually,
energy.
I mean, this is something that with my kids, I mean, we read a lot. And then also been trying to rope their grandmother. So that's why this was really of interest to me, right? So when like over the holidays, we carried books and we were asking her read, and I like the fact that they were insisting on voice acting, like not just the usual reading, but enact it, try and act. And I love that. I've been kind of pushed out of our comfort zone, but yeah, so that's why I was really curious to just get to hear the insight from Rana, and wonderful, really.
You can sign her up for the
Thank you.
training. Yeah, we'll share the training
Yeah.
link. It's
Yeah,
free.
sure. Yeah.
Everything Rana does, in this is open source.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Great.
Nice to
Wonderful.
meet you all, and thank you for the opportunity, Lindsay. I learned from the questions, I learned from the comments. That's how we grow together, and it's wonderful to as human beings to connect all over the world to create a better place for future generations. So thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Rana.
Thank you.